have table mics, and there aren't mics in the audience. You're going to have to speak up if you have a question, and we will try to help each other out. That's what we're here for. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kate Fair. I work at Mental Health America in Sheboygan County. I want to thank the performers for their wonderful job. I really appreciate them, coming out and doing that, and Tom for his work in it. And you should all come back here the first weekend in April to see the next performance.
Last days of Judas Iscariot.
Yeah, so keep that in mind.
Last of his days.
Yes, good stuff. The Health and Wellness Club that helps kind of put this all together on campus here as well, as United Way as a supporter, and Mental Health America, and all these fine panelists. So what I'll have, this all kind of came out of a community conversation that started back in March, where we got together as a community to talk about mental health, alcohol, and other drug abuse. And one of the things that we heard ring true was that people felt that there was stigma as a barrier, or other people would call discrimination, or it depends what level, what you all think as well. I mean, it's all a perception, was an issue here in Sheboygan County. We really want to change that, and we need your help to do so. So we're really excited that all of you turned out tonight, and that this came from that conversation. So I'll let the panel introduce themselves, and then we can go from there. So
I'm Tara Meisner. I'm an author of the memoir Stress Fracture, a memoir of psychosis. I suffer from bipolar. I'm a former journalist and lifelong creative writer.
I'm Jonathan Tyler. I am a mental health therapist with Rose Mental Medical Center.
I'm Amy Culver. I'm a mental health therapist and also a supervisor overseeing the case management for the mentally ill in Sheboygan County, the Sheboygan County Health and Human Services. I had a brother and a nephew who suffered from bipolar and schizophrenia. Both have passed away. We have had 2 suicides in my family, so mental illness is both my profession and in my heart and my family.
Oh, Kate, again.
Yeah, and
I'm really loud, apparently.
Thomas Campbell. I'm a theater professional by trade, but my doctorate is actually focusing on stigmas on the American stage, and specifically how theater can be used as a means to break down those barriers and humanize the issues that are talked about in dramatic literature.
So that said, the panelists and myself, we had not seen this play. We're here first time, first experience with you all as well. And I could see, looking over, different thoughts going through their mind, things they agreed with, things they didn't agree with, things that maybe resonated. So if anybody wants to share anything or get a conversation started, we would love that. Yeah, go ahead.
If you know somebody either in your family or a friend that you have concerns about, and let's say that they have not received any help, how can you help them if they, haven't had any kind of help? You know what I mean? There's just some signs, like, let's just say voices, or real high, real low, or whatever. How can a person help somebody without offending them in the process?
I think it's important that the person that's trying to help, the person you're concerned about, you need to normalize it. So if you go in there and you're talking to a family member, a close friend, and if they were talking to me and it's like, dude, I think something's not going on up here. Okay, so now it's a bad thing, so they're embarrassed. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not hearing anything that you're not, those kind of things. But if you could phrase it in a way that you accept it, and you really need to accept it, because as people, we're pretty perceptive that way. So it's like, this little concern, you were normally this way, and all of a sudden I'm seeing it way over here. That's not you. You're not mean to people, that kind of thing. So just generally, I don't know if anyone else has.
We get asked that question a lot at Mental Health Canada. We get calls, and it's always a hard one to answer, especially within, there's laws around what we can do to help people, because as there should be, people have rights. And so it's this fine line of trying to get people people the help that they need in that supportive, empathetic way. We do have a number of books at Mental Health America that address this that you can get for free from our resource library. How to help my loved one get help. I'm not sick, I don't need help. Different titles like that that are very unique to our library that I would welcome you to come on over and not now because we're moving agencies, so there's boxes somewhere, but soon, December 1st, we'll be reopening. You can get our information at the table. Yeah, I think that's a really, you have to almost want to get help or to at least recognize that something's not right and be ready. And so how can we break the stigma of helping that person?
Getting help has to come from that person because the law makes it so difficult for someone else to step in and before it's dangerous. The reason they don't step in many times for themselves is because they're stigmatizing themselves. You have no idea how many people introduce themselves to me on my unit. Hi, I'm a schizophrenic. No, you're a human being that has, do I say hi, I'm a diabetic? We don't do that, but it's the truth. So I heard that part in the play. That made me nod my head because you don't know how many times a day we do that. We have to make it okay to have it in.
Thank you for the question.
It's a little hard to hear in the back of the room.
We'll talk louder.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Well, I spent some time in Madison, and in Madison they have a clubhouse for people with long-term mental illness. And I went there. I have PTSD and depression. Why isn't there something like that in Sheboygan? They have one in Manitowoc, but not here in Sheboygan.
That's a good question. There is something kind of like that here. Yeah, it does.
We're painting pathways.
I love it, and we hear such great things and send people your way. So, clubhouse models, and there's the drop-in center. There's the open door drop-in center that currently does exist here in Sheboygan County and has since 2002, and they've been, doing great things and come a long way. And it is a place where it's a leisure and support center where folks can come who have mental illness, right? Who are maybe struggling, maybe not. Maybe they're in a good place and they want to give back and they want to be a part of a community. And so excitingly, excitingly, MHA is taking on that program in January, so Mental Health America. So we'll be hopefully infusing some peer specialists and looking at all sorts of models and what makes sense here in Sheboygan County and how can we, have these add-ons to what it already is in existence, if that makes sense. So that is happening, going strong, and we're going to try to create an even stronger community and presence. And I hope you come and hang out then.
Nighttime seems to be especially difficult for people who have various health issues. And why cannot the drop-in center be open at nighttime?
We just received that question at a forum as we were announcing the changeover of the open door, and I think that is going to be considered. Yeah. Weekends are tough as well, and evenings too. So that was spoken loud and clear. So we heard that.
Yeah, as we ramp up staffing and get going, and we definitely want to hear from folks who want to, be there and use it and make it part of their community, and we will definitely look at all of that for sure. Yes.
How do you deal with, I know a child who is extremely intelligent, but I know he's on medicine because he's pretty active or whatever. And how do you deal with the anger issues when they break out, for example, in the class? He might just get up and go hit somebody, like out of the blue. So the more he twitches, he's about ready. Those are signals. How do you, and I know that they're trying to adjust this, I understand that, but when it happens in a classroom, what are suggestions to how to deal with that? Because they just break out in anger.
I'm not an expert on this, but it's ironic that you're asking the question because just yesterday I saw a program where there are teachers around the country who are handling ADHD kids or kids that really are having difficulty sitting and and then every 15 minutes it's like, okay, bounce. And they have found that it's helping these kids stay sleepy. You know, that's just a very tiny thing, but I just thought I would share that because it is it's catching on around the country as kids sitting on ice.
Because you can't have them go hurt somebody.
Right.
I mean, that's just not acceptable.
I think it's working with the school counselors, working with the parents, seeing if they're seeking therapy outside.
And
Family
they are.
therapy can be awesome, and so really kind of figuring out what are the triggers. What can we do to calm down? And so going through that whole process, and it's not easy, right? Anytime anyone, you know, has an illness or what they're going through, or depending on it, can be a really, you know, long road for folks. So it sounds good that they've identified. Early identification and prevention is key into helping folks live happy and well lives. Definitely. I saw a hand way up in the back.
I just had a suggestion about that quite often working on behavior management techniques or contracts can help. Because the whole goal is for the kids to learn how to self-regulate and control her behavior. And that starts out early on in the classroom. And I think it would be very beneficial, like you said, figure out the triggers. If the kid is starting to get wound up, get them away from that situation before he explodes. Teach him how to work with that as well. I mean, again, working with the guidance counselors, the special ed teachers who specialize in working with emotions and being disturbed, they can be great resources because it can definitely be managed and it can be a key that individual later on in life, if you teach him how to manage those behaviors, his life is going to be better as an adult.
Did everybody hear that? So I'm curious to know what your thoughts were on the word neurodiversity. Anybody up here want to share a little bit, or Tara, JT?
Well, I will share my opinion. I think one of the shortcomings of the play was that there was diversity and that was okay and we should just accept it. And because we don't want to offend people with stigma, we shouldn't call it a disease or an illness. But in reality, what we've just heard here, we're concerned about people, and people who have a mental illness need to get healthier. And by saying it's okay that they're extravagant and they make paintings, does not get them closer to health. And it's okay to have a disease that affects your behavior, but it's not okay to not treat it. And when we send this message like, oh, that's just their personality and it's acceptable that they hit people because they have this label, that doesn't help our cause of treating people with mental health issues.
So that was kind of the message that you saw a little bit in there.
That it is a disease.
Yeah.
It's not just part of our diversity. It's a mutation, I would even say.
There was something, Kate, I remember when we filmed Pathways to Wellness, you had made a comment there where you said everyone has mental health and what their most good mental health. And unquestionably there is neurodiversity in the fact that, individuals perceive the world differently, they see the world differently, they interact with the world differently, and that's a spectacular, wonderful thing. However, when the way that I view or perceive the world starts to impair my health or my legal status or my relationships, and I would say at that point that becomes an illness, and there's something out of balance that I have to regulate. And that's where it's important, again, to be able to normalize things, to be able to help people understand that, just because you're experiencing a depression or you're having difficulties with rage or anger or phase of life transition issues, it's okay to receive services. I know when it comes to stigma, I have a number of friends that either work in law enforcement or as firefighters or as EMS, and there's a culture there that you're not allowed to have mental illness, you're not allowed to have mental weakness, and that if you do have mental weakness of any sort, you're almost looked down upon by your peers, they don't want to work with you. So when they're dealing with very traumatic events in their life and they're taking that home with them, they're almost afraid to reach out and access resources because of the stigma attached to it. And that would be a good example of where it's mental wellness, and really working on mental health. Because there's a huge spectrum of mental health, all the way from, there's a huge spectrum of mental health, all the way from, the extreme examples of bipolar schizophrenia where you have, very bombastic situations, and you may have people that, act out in unusual ways that are outside of the mainstream. And then you have very simple mental illness, whereas 50% of all Americans in the next 2 years will experience depression.
Not that that's simple.
Well, yeah,
Right,
not that
I mean,
depression is
not to-
simple, but
yeah.
again, it's common. It's something that many of us will experience, many of us will go through, many of us will have something that we can relate to one another. And that's the area where, again, I think that stigma really needs to be addressed and looked at significantly to help more people, again, look at their mental illness.
So how many folks in the audience here have felt stigma or witnessed it? Show of hands. That's a lot of us. So the question also comes to me, like, what can we do to change that in our community, right? And to get us talking openly. So we talk about words too, where neurodiversity versus mental illness versus mental health disorder versus, and people are very touchy to that language, and rightfully so, because it's a very personal experience. And yet then Amy and I were having this conversation where you don't want to be so PC in a sense that you can't just talk about what's going on and what's happening and how you feel without being offensive to someone. And so being empathetic and what that looks like can really help. So any other questions? I can see a hand. Oh yes, but I would love to introduce Sue, and she's going to talk about lived experience. And I wanted you on the panel, so stand up, Sue. Tell us about who you are.
Sue McKenzie, and I'm a co-director with Suzette Herbicich here, and we're facilitative staff for a statewide organization that brings organizations like the MHA and Sheboygan together to look at what the research says about how to reduce stigma. I'll say that in a second, but I actually wanted to make a comment. I feel like this neurodiversity is a cool concept to think about, and I worry a little bit that we are getting a little too black and white around illness and diversity, and it seems that it's really up to me, if I'm experiencing bipolar disorder, to be able to say, this is where I need some help and management. And I've had the opportunity to interview almost 300 people to talk about their experience of illness and recovery. And gosh, when they're in that place of recovery and they figured out what works, almost every one of them says, I wouldn't give up my bipolar disorder or my depression or my anxiety. Once I have it in a place of recovery, I'm beginning to discover the strengths of that, the sensitivity of who I am that makes it difficult for me to deal with some of these things. It comes back into an area of strength once I have the right pieces of recovery in place. So I just caution us to worry about, is this word right or that word right? It's really up to the individual, and we really want people to see their own strength and resilience and to be able to feel safe to say, things aren't working for me right now, versus I'm bad, I'm different, and
Thank you. That's what I was just trying to say, and I didn't say it as well as you. So I appreciate that.
And yeah, the research is very, very clear that we can learn all we want about mental illnesses, but what changes our heart and our behaviors is when people talk about their real life experiences and we get to know them as human beings, and we learn from them what works.
Which is different to each of
Yeah.
us.
Yep.
And I guess I also want to make sure that people understand what recovery looks like is different for every single human being. Some people will get to a point of recovery and they are, in I guess our terms, the norm, the normal. Okay, I work with persistent and chronic mentally ill people. These people have they have the worst cases of these illnesses. They have been treated with the strongest, most damaging medicine that you can imagine, and their baseline and their health and their happiness when they reach that point of recovery is what you may look at them and say they're not. Like, dude, that guy is sick. But they're not. They're actually just at a new normal. And for them, it is a good place. If they have less voices than they had prior, if they can get through their job with those voices, that's become recovery and that's become health. That looks different. And that's where the play may be talking. Baseline is not always what we look at as normal. Baseline is their new normal. And sometimes they have a flat affect because of their medicine, and that's controlling symptoms, and that scares people. That stigma happens to our folks all the time. That is a scary guy. I bet you he's going to murder somebody because he's got this flat, blank look on his face. What the people didn't know is that medicine is helping that flat affect, but it's also helping horrible voices that may use their kids' life.
Yeah, and you talk about violence and stigma too. I mean, if someone has a mental illness, you're 4 times more likely to be a victim of a crime than you are to. And so, what is the media doing? And those are all discussions that I think are impacting people's lives. And now that we have it right at our fingertips, and we hear bad news all the time, and then it's very damaging, I think, to all of us as individuals, and especially individuals that are struggling.
So I would think that, saying that all mentally ill people, are criminals or are artists or whatever, I mean, if there's diversity, it's in the human in general. Like, there will be some people with bipolar who are high functioning, there will be some who are lower functioning, some will be artists, some will be scientists. It doesn't come with this thing like, now you're going to be an artist and creativity, or now you're going to be a menace.
Yeah.
It's just as diverse as anyone, the rest of your makeup, your human makeup. It's just part of your whole.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
A lot of times, we are more afraid of you. We get more panic attacks, claustrophobic feelings, nervous feelings, like I don't want to go outside, I don't want to take a walk. We're almost, people with mental illness are more afraid than we know to go in the community sometimes because of the laughter and the jokes and, looking at you strange or this or that, being scared of you, or they don't want to touch you or act like normal people around you. They try to make something special all the time, like, you're something special. If you just treat them like normal people, I mean, we're almost more scared of you guys than what you know. And we also, we need I don't know how to say it, but we are also more likely to be abused because of our mental illness and because of our weaknesses and things we can't do and are not able to do. Sometimes we are a victim of abuse too also, so that makes us afraid.
Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful perspective out loud in front of everyone today. I appreciate that. It's great and beautiful and wonderful, and people need to hear that. We need to understand that. If you don't struggle with anxiety,
Every day, don't skip. Every single day, every single dose, take it every day. You can't skip. But what does happen if you watch the news, people that were skipping their medications or not going to their counselor or not going to their doctors are the ones that are the worryable. The ones that take their medication every day, go to counseling, go see their doctors, are on a meds remedy or a program, those are not too bad to worry about at all.
yeah, I would
They're
say
more
that
scared of you.
everybody's recovery looks different, and so that's important to bring up for all of us to try to. So I saw a hand right here.
Right here.
Yeah.
I do have to give you props personally because I think that the concept of your doctorate is amazing. So I really think that's awesome. To say that society as a whole needs help in being able to bring across an understanding that people, including myself and my family that have mental illness, need to be understood as opposed to be put away, is important, absolutely. And it's not an easy decision, but I think ultimately if what you're saying is, if you go to say that, it should be as easy as saying, go to a doctor. Everybody goes to see a doctor. Well, if you look at the access to care, if you look at the availability for people to be able to see the doctors that will be able to help you, that's definitely lacking, and that's putting a stigma right there.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up those barriers, because it's really important to other people, all of us, to understand that each of us have barriers, and access to mental health care is a barrier.
Absolutely.
Barrier in this community, and, folks are coming together across agencies to work on it and address that, and, we can only keep working together to try to make sure we're all as healthy as we can be, whatever that looks like for ourselves.
I've spoken with my daughters, my daughter's psychiatrist who said that it seemed like all the time there were mental illness agencies that were having to get shut down because of budget cuts and things like that. That's showing a lack of importance of those people who could be taxpayers. You know, what does that say for how you value your people, you know, as a government whole, not you as a town?
And I guess I want to fill you in on one thing that happened this week, because I'm with you.
Louder.
I'm so, okay, I am an advocate just like this woman, and I get political and I get angry, and it's like, where is, where is the emphasis on this issue? Well, this year, Governor Walker approved a bill that allows Sheboygan County Health and Human Services, where I work, 100% reimbursement for the mentally ill. It's the first time that we've had a state match for anything at Health and Human Services, and probably, and my coworker is here somewhere, I'm not sure how many years that would be, I think it's probably even longer than he's been there. And so people are starting to pay attention, so I want to point out that one good thing, that we're starting to see some steps forward there.
Well, I'm in Brown County, so I hope that carried through there too.
Okay, CPS regionalization and coming all the way here.
Oh, no problem, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what I would like to say is stigma isn't just, everything that we, spoke about here too. It's like generalizing that mental illness in general. I mean, there's so many different, like you said, there's so many different aspects of it. And there's also positive things that come out of it. I think she was talking about, somebody up there was talking about, I'm happy that I have mental illness because it makes me who I am. Like, I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, there's a lot of things that I know that I need to learn to cope with, but that makes me who I am. And, like, a lot of times when I tell people that I have mental illness, they look at me like, well, are you weird? Like, are you crazy? Like, and it's just this kind of, that's where that stigma comes in. Just because I have mental illness doesn't mean I'm crazy. I'm an awesome person. So, it's like, get to know me as a person. And each individual person has their own quirks and cool things about them. And I think that's what the world really needs to focus on, is not the negative aspect of it, but the positive aspect.
Thank you so much. I love that. I think that's where it's at.
Yeah. I think it's not really a question, but maybe more of a suggestion. I think that to help to break the stigma, I believe that we should get into our school and especially, junior high, high school, where the kids are really, really mean to each other. I think that if we can get in there and help, shed some light on it through our school, I think that it would help. Because I think that when we're younger, we're a little bit more able to change our opinion or our mind on something, versus when you're an adult, to change your mind would be a little bit different.
Yeah, that's great advice. I know at Mental Health America we do have one youth educator who rules the world. She's in the audience. Her name is Angela. She's over there. She last year saw 4,000 kids in Sheboygan County from Head Start age all the way to high school. We fundraise for this program. We write grants for this program. We get United Way funding for this program. We need 10 Angelas. That would be amazing, because she talks anything from self-harm to self-esteem, healthy relationships, anti-bullying messages, depression, suicide prevention, and she's all over the place. So yes, I totally agree. I appreciate you speaking that out loud, and I'm sure we'll shout out to Angela. If I can do that, I will do that all the time. So.
No, I think that's something that this play does. It's about a 9-year-old kid learning about this stuff, and it's
through his eyes.
Yeah, through his eyes. And so, there are some